training, understanding your cycle. Today's going to be a awesome live as I feel this is a very, very important topic. So if you guys have questions or are trying to join me live inside the Zoom, maybe drop a comment below. I'm kind of trying to go between two different screens here. So I will do my best. Tomorrow, I am going to be figuring out how to reconnect Zoom to this, to Facebook so we can go live inside the group and I can share my screen and everything. Because of course, I put together an amazing presentation for you guys today, and I will be sharing that on Zoom. So one other thing is I do record these, and by recording these, I will be able to share them with you all um on yes, I will be able to share them with you, and I will be able to share these because they are recorded, so I'll be able to, everything I do is linked through. Okay, sorry, I got too many pages going on, and here we go. So you can see this, here's this and this. All right, you guys, so I am just going to go with the flow and walk you through how to understand your cycle. And really, to understand your cycle, women, we are cyclic. Men are cyclic as well. However, we run very, very different. So women's physiology, we are on a 28-day cycle up to 32. Some women, do have a 32-day cycle. So anywhere between 28 and 32 days is going to be typical. But as you can see, men run in a 24-hour cycle. So the world that we live in is really based off of a 24-hour cycle. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the breaking down this, our cycle, so you guys can understand it, how you feel, when you feel your best, when you don't feel your best, and, maybe a few foods to eat during that time frame as well. We're not diving into that too much today, but more so when you feel your best, when you should do your best work, and so on. Also, what's pretty cool is women's cycle mirror the phases of the moon. So if you think about it, we menstruate or ovulate during the full moon or the new moon. So I really highly suggest that you start tracking your cycle to see what that looks like for you. And then women's cycle also resembles the four seasons. So summer, winter, autumn, and winter, which did I miss? Spring. There we go. So really, really cool. And we'll dive into that a little bit too. But first, I want to talk about the four distinct phases of the woman's cycle. So ultimately there's two phases, which is the follicular phase. The follicular phase is from day 0 to day 14, which is when you ovulate. And then the luteal phase is from ovulation to the beginning of your menstruation again. So we'll kind of dive into that as we go a little bit deeper. So as I mentioned, there's two phases, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. Within the follicular phase, day 1 through day 5, that is when you're going to menstruate. That's when you're going to have that period. So that's the first 1 to 5 days, possibly even 1 to 7 days. From day 7 to day 14, that is where we are in our proliferative phase. And that goes right up to ovulation. Then we're going to have ovulation, which is about day 14. And then we're going to move straight into your luteal phase, which luteal phase is from day 14 to 28. So with that, let's dive into phase 1. Phase 1 is menstruation. So as I mentioned, this is day 1 through day 5 to 7. And during this time, this is when those sex hormones are going to drop. This is going to trigger the lining of the endometrium to shed, meaning you start your period and you bleed. So if you're thinking of seasons, this is the season of winter time. This is when you're going to want to rest. This is where you're going to want to reflect and really just take a little bit of time for yourself. So, maybe those first 2 to 3 days, you're really into hibernation. And this is kind of when you do your best work mentally because you're inspired. You have an increase in clarity. You are introverted but intuitive at the same time. You may be a little more emotional during this time frame, as you know, you're on your period. So embrace this time. This is when you really just kind of cave in and let yourself be go into hibernation mode. Maybe take a little bit of time to really ground and connect with yourself. And you know, during this time as well, you're going to have a little bit of cravings for carbs and sweets. You're going to feel a little bit hungrier, and you may feel like you put on a little bit of water weight. So you are going to be holding on to a little bit of water weight during this time frame. Okay, so that's phase one when you're actually menstruating and bleeding. Let's move into phase two. So what does phase two look like? Phase two, this is menstruation to ovulation. So we're still in that first phase of the follicular phase. And during day 5 to 7 through day 14, this is when you feel your absolute best. You feel confident. You feel and look amazing. This is when your estrogen starts to rise. And estrogen is one of your sex hormones. So your estrogen is rising, making you feel good, making like your hair, your skin, your lips, your nails, everything looks and feels amazing and stronger. You have a clearer complexion. You're very creative. You have an increase in energy. You're social. You're extroverted, and you may have a suppressed appetite, so you're not as hungry. This might be a good time, or this is generally a better time to do fasting. If you're doing some intermittent fasting, want to experiment with anywhere from a 24 to 36-hour fast, like this is a great time to do that. And this is when you feel your leanness. So no wonder you just feel good during this time frame. So this is day 7 to day 14. I know it's not a lot of time, but this is when you're going to feel your absolute best. Also during this time, this is when we have an increased libido. So on day 10, your testosterone is going to spike, which is going to increase your libido. During this time, the sperm can live up to 5 days. So 5 days before you ovulate, your libido is going to increase, which is going to allow for that chance to get pregnant. So you're only fertile for 5 to 6 days a month for 1 day of implant, which is on day 14. So kind of neat. Then overall, this is the follicular phase. So follicular phase, it's from day 1 of your cycle through ovulation. So day 1 through around day 14. During this time, some great things to do would be start new projects, brainstorm. You are feeling like you feel like you can multitask, you can work a little bit longer. So maybe not during those first few days of your cycle, but as you move through the follicular phase, that first 14 days, you feel good. You are more detail oriented, so you can do that detailed, challenging work. This is when you may want to fill your social calendar. So I would really focus on this more from day 5 to day 14 when you're feeling ultimately your best. You're going out with your friends, you're catching up with people, forming connections. Maybe this is when you're dating. You can brainstorm and maybe plan new events during this time frame, so you feel on top of the world. Then we move into phase 3. So phase 3 is literally 1 day. This is your ovulation. This is your fertile day. And during this time, your body releases pheromones, and this is when you are most attractive to the opposite sex. Again, this is when you're a social butterfly, networking, pitching ideas, collaborating. Maybe this is a time when you need to make that bold move or have that tough conversation. This would be the time to do it. And of course, you're the most fertile at this time frame. Let's dive in a little bit more into ovulation. So what happens during ovulation? Again, this is when the estrogen is going to spike. This is day 12 to 14. It is 1 day. And during that estrogen, this is going to trigger the release of LH. This stimulates your ovaries to release an egg, and then the egg's going to travel down the fallopian tube and implants. So from here, it either gets fertilized by sperm or it dissolves. And something to note, because a lot of men may not know this, but during this time frame, you're going to see a change in your cervical fluid. So expect clear, stretchy discharge, kind of like egg whites. And this helps protect the sperm during that time frame to help with the implementation and pregnancy. So moving into the luteal phase. So phase 4, this is where we are post ovulation to menstruation. So we're about day 14 to day 28. This is where your body needs more calories, and your body may need 300 to 500 more calories. You're going to feel more hungry, and that is because we have an increase in progesterone, which is one of your other sex hormones. And you may experience right after, right before menstruation, that you have a drop in energy, and that is because of that progesterone. So this is a good time to maybe start winding down a little bit, kind of start wrapping up those projects that you may have been working on during the follicular phase, during that day 7 to 14, when you're feeling just absolutely amazing. Start wrapping those things up. And, the closer you get to your period, the closer you get to day 1, you want to start to try and relax and maybe become a little more introverted. So earlier we were talking about how each season, or 4 seasons, is similar to the 4 distinct cycles or phases of your cycle. So this phase right here, that luteal phase, this is more like autumn or fall. That follicular phase is spring. We're excited. We're social. Ovulation, that one day we are on top of the world. This is like summer. And then menstruation is winter, where we're coming back into that hibernation period. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. I feel like that's a good overview of your 4 different phases and how they relate to the phases, or, the seasons, and how they relate to the cycles of the moon. Us women, we are very complex, amazing, amazing creatures. And this is, I think it's very important to not only fuel your body in according to your cycle, but also train your body physically. And I think I forgot to mention a couple things during this first part, this hibernation phase. This is where you're really gonna want to, I kind of mentioned this is hibernation, but this is when you're gonna feel at like energy is going to be at its lowest. Okay, so during this time frame, this is when you just focus on, stretching, some yoga, going for walks, not pushing it. And one thing I really want to address here that I forgot to is I know us women, we feel like we need to just push through and make sure we are like knocking everything out on our to-do list and always be on top of our game. This is the time to really hibernate and give your body the time it needs to rest and relax. And one thing I've noticed is I've done this through and through multiple times. If I ignore the way that I'm feeling and I push through, I will end up being tired the rest of the month because I ignored my body during these first 1 to 5 days of my cycle. So you may be feeling good, but make sure to pull back a little bit, go into rest, and just listen to your body is the main thing I want you to take away from this first phase of menstruation. All right, you guys, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this answered some of your questions. And of course, we will dive deeper into this. This was just an overview of understanding your cycle, how you may feel during the different phases, and how sweet it is that we are in this 28-day cycle and we really do sync up with, the phases of the moon, and also the phases of phases of the season. So talk to you guys next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful, right? Oh, it's Monday. Have a wonderful Monday.